Welcome to My Daily Thread. It's a great little place to get a snippet of wisdom from the yoga and the meditation masters to start or to end your day. I'm Jeff Lichty. All right, welcome back. Let's rock and roll, friends. We are straight into Chapter 2, where Chapter 2, verse 20 kicked us off into the idea of that deeper part of us that can actually see things that's going on that is not our external reality. We talked about how this relates to the things called kleśas and best summarized by our attachments and our fears. I think that probably sums up kleśas, our attachments and our fears. So remember, we started the week with a simple idea. How are you showing up? How are you showing up for your primary relationships, the most important relationships? And we started to add the concept again of the observer's pause so that you can breathe, take a breath, and watch what's going on in the mind. And then yesterday we were talking about moving from our triggers to the truth. Watch what's going on in the mind before I start chirping, before I start speaking. Watch the chirping in my mind. But yesterday's question was simple. It was, are we coming from clarity or are we coming from conditioning? Are we coming from clarity or are we coming from conditioning? And now that moment from our sponsors. Yeah, you know, that is me. And think about February 2025. Ziggy Moves, San Pancho, Mexico. Beautiful sunsets, jump shots. What are jump shots? Oh, good question. They are full of fun, but there'll also be sunsets, good food, good friends, and so much more. Stand by for more info. And let's get back at it. Let's talk about a main manifestation of the kleśas. That's projecting our fear into our relationships, pointing that finger of blame. So, Tuarji, my great teacher in India, he would often point his finger out and say, when you point your finger out at someone else, there's always three pointing back at you, three pointing back at me. Let's be honest. Let me give you an example. Now, this is maybe more information than you need, so feel free to fast forward it. But when I got divorced, I pointed my finger at my ex-wife and I said, you are disrespectful. This behavior was disrespectful. You did this. Disrespect, blah, blah, blah. And what I needed to do, and it took me a few years to do this, was to realize that there was three fingers pointing back where I had to ask, Jeff, how were you disrespectful? What were you doing that was disrespectful? What behavior did you present that was absolutely 100% disrespectful? What was my role in this? It was easy for me to blame. It's not hard. That's what we do. Now, of course, it's not right, but it's common. We project our feelings and our fears, our hurts and pain onto someone else that we're in relationship with. Now, that might make you feel a little bit edgy, and I'm sorry about that, but when you can start to recognize that the thing that you are seeing in someone else probably has way more to do with yourself, and again, let me own it, when I point out someone else's problem, it almost always has to do with that problem that I have with myself. A fear that's not been expressed, a fear that's not even been analyzed, written down, understood, consciously or unconsciously. You guys remember that fancy sutra? Nietzsche, suchidukanat masu, Nietzsche, suchi sukat makyatir avidyā. Woo! You don't have to know that. That is the definition of avidyā, that ignorance that's penetrating into my relationships. And then in our fear, in our attachments, then we start to project. We throw this all out. We blame and we toss it onto our relationships and everyone around us. How often I confuse what is not my capital S self with the self. That's the root of all of my suffering. We have a seer, a deeper awareness, a deeper level of consciousness that is always available to us if we would only pause, if we would only listen, if we would only look within a little bit more. Then we could really ask the question that's important. Is this really about them? Or is this actually about me? If I'm finding myself in some kind of conflict in a loving relationship, and I'm pointing my finger out at that person that I love, I have to have a really good look at the three fingers pointing back at me. Where am I being pulled by my ego? Where am I being pulled by that attachment to pleasure? How am I avoiding pain? How am I avoiding my fears? I need to bring ownership back to my own problems to find my inner clarity. And then from there, I can start to make clearer decisions and move peacefully in my relationships. So what's the takeaway today? So of course, always pause, always breathe. You breathe you, as Patabi Joyce would say. But then ask the question, is this really about them or is it about me? Is this about them or am I seeing through my own past, my own fears, my own mental filter? Dang, this is a lot, isn't it? Whew. All right, more tomorrow. Om. Peace out. As a post show note, if you can subscribe to the podcast, if you can share it with a friend, if you can do those podcasty things, that really helps us in the podcast world and helps us move along with the message. Peace out.